Hey, what is up you guys? I am bringing you a video about my greenhouse and what I've learned in the past year, and just tips and tricks and ideas for people who are looking to get a greenhouse or have one and need some help. This is a great video. I do have notes written here. It is a lot. We'll be going through most of them, but not all of them. I'll try to sum them up. So let's take a tour of the greenhouse. My greenhouse that I have is a Grandio Element. It's a 6x8 basic, and this sells for $1,500. And this doesn't come with a snow support or automatic openers. So automatic openers, like each one costs like 70 or 80 bucks. So that might be something to invest in the future. These walls are 10 millimeter twin wall UV protected polycarbonate, which is really good other than, not having glass. There's definitely pros and cons to having polycarbonate versus. So right now we ended up building a wooden base. We did not buy one from the website just because it's just expensive. We just ended up making one and bolting, because the frame, you do want a frame on the ground because this thing really bends because it's very lightweight. I recommend digging down the greenhouse a little bit. It keeps the temperatures a bit more level. And I also recommend some gravel flooring. I do every year is I will put a heating cord. It's usually really dry up here, so I end up watering the gravel and the humidity increases. And these two wooden tables, they're just made out of 2x4s and birch. I just store all my pots and my dirt and my fertilizers and stuff. Anything that I don't want to get wet at all, I will put in a airtight container. Everything in the greenhouse has a chance to get wet. So one thing I invested in was a thermometer. And I really recommend getting the one with the humidity on it. Humidity really affects seedlings, and keeping that humidity up in the wintertime is gonna keep the greenhouse hotter, so that's one thing to look for. I also have my fan. I got this on Amazon. I was gonna get it at Walmart, but they were sold out at the time because it was like January that I was looking for a fan. You need a fan in your greenhouse just because it adds circulation to your greenhouse. That way you're not getting growing any chances of mold or any kind of bacteria in your greenhouse. There is a lot of good bacteria in your soil, but with the added moisture and the stillness of the air. Another thing is heat. That is a great question. And not only heat, but how do I get electricity in here? What I ended up doing for electricity is I took a extension cord from the house. I wanted this to be low budget, not very high on electric. I want it to be just overall environmentally friendly. And so what I ended up doing is I took an extension cord, put it in some PVC, and bury that PVC in the ground. And so now I run the PVC under my tables, and then I have an outlet. The heating cord in the gravel, and I also have two Clamplights. So you can either have a floodlight, which is 250 watts. And so make sure you have a Clamplight that can handle those. They take the different looking ones. They're kind of like clay looking. They're not plastic because it would end up melting the plastic. I don't like floodlights. I really don't. They break so easily, and sometimes I get them wet. I can't tell you how many times I broke a floodlight. And the reason why I don't use a heater is because I want it to be environmentally friendly, and I don't want to be running all this energy. Maybe next year I might look to use a tiny heater, but I really didn't want to this year. And I think this year I still might not, because I got by pretty well. And I recommend starting in wintertime. I use a seedling mat. It's a heating mat for seedlings, and I really recommend it just because you don't have to keep your greenhouse as hot, and it keeps the germination temps up. But I really recommend these It's a reptile light, and they're just these ceramic lights that are just 100 watts, but they put out like pretty good heat. They should fit your clamp lights that you have at home. Usually clamp lights are 100 watts, and that's what they are. I use that in the wintertime a lot, and it keeps it about 5 to 10 degrees hotter at night if I'm literally just using that. One thing that I struggled with starting the greenhouse, how do I keep this thing warm? Just like an empty space. How do I keep this big plastic thing warm? There's multiple videos on YouTube, thermal mass. And so basically you see a bunch of these videos and pictures of painting these like bottles black. And so that's why I have a trash can in here, because it's dark and it will take in thermal mass. I do not fill it up all the way. If I do want to keep my greenhouse hotter, I would, paint more bottles. But that's like one of the convenient ways of, I had a trash can lying around, might as well put it in the greenhouse so it can radiate heat. And so the main purpose behind thermal mass or solar thermal mass, is that when the sun beats down on this bin, it'll take in energy from the sun and warm the water that's inside. And so water releases heat very slowly, and so that should be enough time to keep your greenhouse warm at night. I would recommend painting smaller black bottles and just putting them around inside your greenhouse. Usually smaller bottles are better, just because they can make sure that everything, stays warm. I also recommend, for keeping your greenhouse warm at night, is just keeping more stuff in your greenhouse, keeping more soil, just so you guys know that water holds heat very well. It releases it very slowly. So if you have wet soil or wet dirt, it's gonna be warmer and more humid in here, but it's gonna stay warmer than dry soil or nothing in here or low humidity. So when do I start my seeds? To get these cherry tomatoes that are absolutely delicious, and I can't stop eating them because the garden's right there. Sorry. But anyways, usually I start my seedlings at the beginning of February. Trying to keep the seedlings warm is a bit challenging. Keeping them on the seedling mat is really great for them. Usually I start like my tomatoes. Tomatoes are a bit more tolerant of the cold, and so are, your veggies and whatnot, and like anything that's kind of like a leafy green will do great, especially like, kale and spinach, radishes, green onions, leeks, carrots, what else? Anything that's kind of green and leafy, like, you got peas and stuff, and beans would start doing great. And then, usually the first challenge is trying to get them to germinate. Once I get them to germinate, then it's easy from there. Germinating is the hardest step for me, just because I'm doing them outside. You can have them inside, warm, and then bring them out. Yeah, you don't need a greenhouse. You could grow them inside under a shop light. I don't think you could set them or get them planted as early. I probably wouldn't start them until March if I was growing them inside, because with the shop light, one, you're limited space, and two, you are limited sunlight of how much, because if they're gonna get super big, you're gonna need another shop light. And then when you do transfer them out, you're gonna have to harden them off, because when you transfer them out, they're not used to real sunlight, so you can end up burning their leaves. And that usually takes a week, and then you start for like an hour or two, and then bring them inside, and then just progressively longer and longer each day. I think that's really it. That's just kind of my tour of the greenhouse. It's not really fancy, and I make it work with what I have. I think a lot of people could do what I'm doing with my greenhouse. And I really don't have anything in here, I have plants in here probably 8 months out of the year. It's not 24/7, so yeah, if you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments. That would be great. Have a nice day.